All right, so let's talk about some container Windows controls. And in particular, we're going to be talking about group boxes and panels. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we might do in code. So we have this Windows application, very simple Windows application that demos, that will be demoing group boxes. But in fact, what I'm going to put here instead of group boxes at first is radio buttons. Kind of show you what group boxes can do for you. So here's a radio button, and let's put in, well, let's say 4 of them. And let's go ahead and make those a little bigger so we can see them. All right. And so here I have 4 radio buttons. And what I want to do is I want to configure these in such a way that they tell me something, let's say about cars, because we used that car example before. So I'm going to right click on the radio button and go to the properties dialog. And the text of this radio button will be, let's say, sedan. And the name of the radio button will be radio sedan. Okay, and then I want to do that with the other ones as well. So let's pick number 2 here and say that that is radio convertible. And its text property will be convertible. And I got 2 others. So number 3 will become, let's say, manual transmission. And of course, we would have to give that an appropriate name. So this would be radio manual transmission. And finally, we have our last button, which would be radio automatic transmission. And the text property, the appropriate value of automatic transmission. All right, so that gives us something that looks like this. And let's just bring these over so they look like they're visible. And so clearly sedan and convertible are mutually exclusive, and automatic transmission and manual transmission are mutually exclusive. But when we run this code, we will see that I have sedan and convertible, and I can select one of those, okay, and I can select manual transmission or automatic transmission. But the problem that I have is I select, for example, automatic transmission, and sedan and convertible are no longer selected at all. But I didn't really want that behavior. So the point of a radio button is that only one can be pressed at a time. But there are certainly times when what you'll have is effectively 2 sets of radio buttons. All right, so one way to solve this problem is to add in a group box. So let's double click on that, and there's my group box. The biggest thing you'll notice about a group box, of course, is that it has a text, in this case group box, and that's a caption that will show up at runtime. And what I can do is I can edit the properties of this thing. Go down to group box here, and the text will be what shows up, of course, to the user. And so I'll say transmission. Transmission, because that's one of my groups of text boxes, or sorry, radio buttons. And of course, the group box would be something like group box transmission. Okay. And then what I can do is I can simply take my radio button for automatic or manual transmission and automatic transmission and place it inside of that group box. And I can do the same thing with sedan and convertible. So back over here, double click on group box, go to its properties, This would be group box car body, and the text will be car body. All right, and then we go back here and we can take this group box and put sedan and convertible inside of it, like so. And normally you don't want these overlapping, so I'll go ahead and move this. And you'll notice that the content of the group box moves with the box itself, and I didn't have to do anything special. All you have to do is create the control and place it in the physical confines of that group box. And so now when I run the code, you can see that I have a sedan and a convertible, and I can select either one of those. And when I come down here to transmission, because they're in a separate group box, I can select manual transmission, and it does not affect sedan and convertible. So I can have a sedan that's an automatic transmission, or a convertible that's either automatic or manual. And so that's what GroupBox does for you. It provides a sort of boundary around a collection of controls, and there's also a visual indication of that boundary with the gray box and the text of that, or the text property of that particular box. And also, if for some reason you didn't want people to select transmission anymore, because maybe you have all electric cars and that's not what you're doing, but you don't necessarily want to make that invisible. You certainly could make it invisible, but what you could do is you can disable that particular text box, like so. So we go to the enabled property, and right now it's true, so I'll double click, changes it to false, and so now when we run the code, it's visible, but it can't be selected. Of course, you could make it invisible completely, but the point is, when you enable or disable, or enable true or enable false, the group box, it also enables or disables all of the controls inside of that group box. So that's group boxes. The panel control is also a container control, and really very similar to the group box. Let's go to our form here and just extend that out a bit. And then in the toolbox, you can see something here called panel. And I'm going to double click on that twice. And then when I go back to my Windows form, you can see now I have a panel, or in fact a couple of panels. And so what's the difference between panels and group boxes? Well, the first thing you'll notice is that whereas with my group box I had a text property that was basically a caption for that group box, for panels I don't have that. So just so we have something to look at, let's go ahead and move the sedan over here and the convertible. And the other thing about group boxes versus panels, let's go ahead and take a look at the properties so I can show you this. So there's my panel as opposed to my group box, and I'm going to, the first thing I'm going to note is that there is no text property, so I would be looking in this basic area, and there's no property called text that the group box did have. And the second thing is that we have this ability to scroll with panels. So for example here, we have auto scroll, and I'm going to double click and set that property to true, and I need to change the name of the panel, of course. So panel, and this one was car body, so I'll put that in there like so. And then when I go back over here, you don't actually see that name because it's not a caption, it's not the text property, but it's just the name of the thing. At any rate, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this past the border of my box, and you'll notice that a scroll bar appears here. I can do the same thing with the manual transmission, put that in here, and then put this one in there as well, and again go past the border. Now you'll note here we didn't get a scroll bar like we did in the first one, and that is because, going back to properties, auto scroll for the panel that indicates transmission, so I'll put that name in there, transmission. The panel for transmission does not include an auto scroll, or that is to say the auto scroll property for that is false. So if we run this code, you will see that sedan well, sedan is the radio button here. Convertible is the radio button here. I don't see them both, but I can use the scroll bar to see them. So in this way, you could put quite a few controls in one spot. They're all grouped together logically, but they don't take up the complete real estate, if you will, of the controls that are inside them because you're scrolling back and forth. And of course, if you don't turn auto scroll on, then it just gets set it equal to true. Then the controls that are not there just sort of get cut off. So probably that's not what you wanted. Much more likely is you want to do something like this. So again, you've got group boxes and you've got panels. The biggest difference between the two is that with group boxes, you have captions in the form of a text property. They do not scroll. And with panels, you don't have that caption in the form of a text property, but you do have scroll bars if you enable them. Okay, so that's group boxes and panels.